All right, one more indicator, so to speak, I can get in trouble with tonight before I quit. This is the Trav-a-dial that I picked up on the cheap off of Craigslist quite a while back. And no mount or nothing, just the raw Trav-a-dial. These tend to command pretty high premiums on the used market on eBay, oddly enough. Many people consider these to have become kind of obsolete from by DROs. People are still buying them. So this one, probably wondering, well, why are you even going to do anything? It seems to be working perfectly fine. It is and it isn't. A couple issues. I noticed that every once in a while when you turn it a certain way, it feels like there's grit or something in there. Also, I had a question about whether or not this was normal that this wheel moved around. The shaft is very loose. You can actually see the needle moving just from me doing this. Alright, so I'm wondering whether or not there's some sort of a bushing or something in there that's completely worn out. So I kind of want to do an internal visual inspection on this thing. This knob is missing. Just to get this knob, if you find one used, is expensive. I was going to keep this for my lathe, make a mount for it, but I'm thinking actually I'm gonna sell it. I think I recently saw one of these sell on eBay for some ungodly sum of money. It had a knob on it. My understanding is the parts aren't available for these any longer. Well, now that's funny. I just got done saying that, and I just looked at recent current auctions here on eBay. And today is March 9th. Bridgeport Mill Trav-a-dial bracket and dials, complete setup, nice. It's only up to $76. It's got 2 bids, so $25 shipping. That should bring a lot more money. That's 3 days and 21 hours left. Let's watch that because I'm going to be curious to see what that brings. Anyways, that what that is, that's 2 of these units I just showed you. They don't appear to be missing the knobs. But more importantly, it's this bracket assembly. Let's just, I always like to see where the rubber hits the road, actual sold items. So here's one, $112. There's one, that one's probably got something wrong with it because it's only 66. $162.50. You know, they're coming down a lot in price. These were a lot higher. Yeah, there's one, $225. So, anyways, let's open it up. Can't be too much to this thing. All 4 screws appear to be the same size. Whoa, look at the filth. Oh, yeah. I mean, that's just loaded with crud. You can see all of this crap that's in here. Any of that getting in these really fine teeth is going to definitely cause some, wreak some havoc. No wonder why things aren't so great. What if this was originally packed with that much grease that solidified and hardened, or is that all just crap that got in there over time? That's interesting. Trying to figure out whether or not this gear will just slide up off of this. Doesn't seem like it, no. Looks like the only way that gear is coming out is with the gear below it, but this gear is sandwiched between the two, so it looks like you got to pull this up and out as an assembly. Yep. Set that aside for a moment. And this just comes out. These do turn independently on this shaft. Alright, so I'm just going to make myself a mental note that all this crud and everything is on the top part. Goes in this half. Of course, when I clean that off, I don't know how I'll be able to tell. I'll have to be careful about that. does look like that's a brass gear. It looks like a brass colored gear down on this side, inside there, and a steel gear on the top. So there is a difference there. I think once we clean this up, we'll be able to get a better look at the anatomy of the beast, so to speak. Cleaned it up quite a bit, far from spotless, but if you saw the pile of gunk I just cleaned off the bench, you'd know that I did get a lot of the stuff out. I really couldn't do much on this side here because I didn't want to get any liquid up into this area here that might get inside the dial area. So I had to leave that pretty much alone. This side cleaned up really well. So I can't quite tell exactly what's going on here. This almost looks to me like it's got a concave area around the perimeter, almost as if it was supposed to have ball bearings in there. So right in this area, right in here, it almost seems like there was supposed to be ball bearings in there, but they would have all fallen out as soon as I took this out. So unless they were already missing, but it's strange because this actually sits down in there a little too far by the looks of it. See if we put this. This bottom edge of this wheel is rubbing right there. There are ball bearings in this end. That's got a taper to it. So that feels good in there. It's this bottom here that seems all weird. So this is going to sit in here like this and then come down and go in like this. Then this whole assembly comes down on top like this. And it's back together the same exact way it was. So we still got this weird situation where the wheel doesn't seem correct to me. See, I originally thought that by design this was made to move like this and that it would basically be pushed up against the, I guess like preloaded when it's pushed up against the bed or the way on the lathe. So if you follow my meaning, like this. See if I do that, see how it hangs? Well, maybe not. Well, I did a little quick research and unfortunately it appears as though Southwestern Industries, the company that makes the Trav-a-dial, has phased out all parts for these. There's a company called Texas Precision Instrument, I believe, that does repair and refurbishing on Trav-a-dials. But from a thread that I found on the Practical Machinist website, there was a whole discussion on there about how one of the parts that apparently goes bad or needs replacing occasionally in a Trav-a-dial is what's called a pivot bearing. And that may be what is actually going on with this one. So if I just take this apart again, try and explain what I'm talking about here. Okay, so if we look down in these holes right here, there are actually tiny ball bearings right here inside the back cover. These little cups right here are actually called pivot bearings. And by design, there's supposed to be ball bearings inside this race. So this one is completely void of any ball bearings, which is why the shaft is just flopping around in here, which is why that wheel is rubbing here where it shouldn't be. Okay. This one also appears to be missing all of the ball bearings, but amazingly, it doesn't seem to be really affecting the operation too much. And then this one here, the last shaft, the smallest one, That I can see a couple of ball bearings still in there, but it appears like there's quite a few that are missing. Where did the ball bearings go? Well, probably over time they fall out through this slot where the wheel is. Either that, or more than likely at some point somebody had this apart and ball bearings would fall out and they would just slap it back together. And until it got to the point where like it was missing a whole bunch, up until that point it may have actually still kind of functioned. So this is made by Southwestern Industries, and so the word is now that even though it says return it back to them for service, that parts, they no longer support parts for this. Now there are aftermarket parts available. For instance, the missing knob on the front of mine, this knob right here is available. Somebody on eBay is selling these knobs. Apparently they're fabricating a aftermarket knob to fit it, and it's supposed to be a perfect replacement for like 23 bucks. What I haven't been able to find is a source for these pivot bearings. I haven't looked very hard. I'm just going on what I'm reading online from several individuals who talk about this. As a matter of fact, one individual said that this company down in Texas Precision Instruments, I believe is the name of the company, that will refurbish one of these for you for, I forgot, I think he was quoted close to $300 to refurbish one of these. He had said that they had told him that they actually don't have a source for these pivot bearings yet, and that the way that they've been replacing them is from good used units. So they're cannibalizing used units to get the bearings, I guess. So that's not an ideal situation. So somebody's either going to have to find a source for these bearings, or at some point we're going to reach an impasse where it's just not going to be feasible to fix these at all. Why can't you put a regular bearing in there? Well, maybe you could. I mean, there's got to be a reason why they designed it this way, though, that they've got a beveled edge on this shaft right here. And I also, now that I know that there were supposed to be balls in there, I look at this bevel right here and I can see what appears to be scoring marks on that shaft. Yeah, there's a groove on that shaft, which is probably normal, but it also appears to have scoring on it. So I think swarf or something may have gotten in there over the years and caused problems. And then somebody else mentioned that one of the problems that's common on these is if swarf or anything gets inside here and it gets in a tooth and it causes this to hang, what happens is when it hangs, of course the carriage keeps moving, and instead of this wheel moving freely, it stops. That causes the wheel to rub, and over time it can wear a flat spot on this wheel. Fortunately for this one, the wheel looks like it's actually in pretty good shape. The pivot bearings are a killer. So I'm afraid this is going to be just a parts, sold as is for parts or repair. Oh well. So thanks for tuning in. I hope if nothing else, you guys might have found it mildly interesting, at least, the theory of operation behind this Trav-a-dial. All right, thanks for watching. Thanks for subscribing. If you haven't already subscribed, please do subscribe and click the like button.